Hi everyone, welcome back to Neurodifference. I'm Rhys Jenkins, and today I want to deep dive once again in the vast universe that is neurodivergent conditions. A revelation. That is what my friend Lou described, finding out that she was autistic at 42. In the UK alone, research shows almost 97% of autistic adults over 60 remain undiagnosed. I want you all to think about what it would be like going decades of navigating life without the right framework and without the right support. So today, I want to talk about what happens after diagnosis, late diagnosis in particular, and more importantly, the life hacks, the tools for self-discovery that can make all the difference. I would like to start by talking about the first steps after diagnosis. When you get a diagnosis as an adult, you can feel everything at once: relief, validation, anger, confusion. Lou told me that for some people it was a devastation because they felt they went through things they shouldn't have had to. Now, autism was seen as a weakness. However, for writer Tori Morales, who put it beautifully in her guide, when you know you're autistic, you're already at an advantage. You can learn how to address your differences. This is backed up by Lou, who says she learned how to accept herself once she was diagnosed. I myself found it liberating when I was diagnosed late at 16. I felt I could understand myself more. I'd also like to highlight that in the UK, it can take a number of years, sometimes even up to 7 years, to discover that you are autistic. I would now like to highlight Chris Bonello's advice. Track strengths and weaknesses. It's about self-awareness, not self-criticism. For me, this is exactly what it is like. I have a lot to learn about not criticizing myself when I stand out because I'm neurodivergent. I often apologize for standing out as different, but what I am coming to realize and be aware of is that I will always stand out, and that's no bad thing, whether you're 34 or 64. So here's your first hack. Start journaling your discovery process. Write down the moments when you feel most you, and the moments when you're masking hardest. That notebook becomes a map, your map. Also, finding online autistic communities like Neath Autism Hub, San Neath, and NES Swansea branch, for example. Please look them up on Facebook. That can do a lot of good too. It is most likely there and groups like those where you will find people with lived experience of autism and people who can understand how someone can stand out for being neurodivergent. I'd now like to talk about self-acceptance and lifting the mask, or unmasking. Transitioning to self-acceptance can be a very difficult process when you're diagnosed later on in life. At 39 years of age, my friend Lou had a breakdown, which led to a 2-year break to recover. She struggled to understand why she was different. Her head was a mess, and she had considerable difficulty recognizing people's bad intentions. This is something I have faced too, and I am sure myself and Lou are not alone. If you have been in similar situations, please let us know in the comments if you feel comfortable to do so. This led to some incredibly difficult situations and relationships in Lou's life. And it leads me on to an important question. Kristen Abel once posed the question, what if people don't like who I am without the mask? I have a feeling Lou has thought about this question many times. I myself still do so to this day at 34 years of age. Unmasking is about safety and authenticity. For example, stimming. As many who listen to this podcast knows, stimming is necessary to process powerful emotions, whether they be joy or fear. Being able to stim in the presence of trusted friends and family is a huge first step towards self-acceptance. And if anybody is watching who is the family member or a friend of someone who's neurodivergent, I implore you from the bottom of my heart, do whatever you can to understand stimming and actions that may stick out as not normal. In terms of other life hacks, you can start unmasking in safe spaces, at home, with trusted friends and family. Again, comes down to understanding things like stimming. You can also reframe masking not as fake, but as a survival strategy. Recognize it, then decide when to put it down. It can be quite complicated. I'm still in this process myself. It can be quite difficult and tricky, especially for those who are diagnosed later on in life. And again, kind of goes back to what I was saying about going so many years having to mask to fit in. Before I go into the benefits of late diagnosis, I wanted to highlight some of the reasons people go for it. A general overview of the process. When I asked my friend Lou about an overview of her diagnostic process, she talked to me about the confusion she felt, the depression, and not fitting into society. She also talked about one person describing Lou as having 5 different personalities to cope with different situations. It's manifested itself on the dating scene for Lou. After speaking with others, especially her son, who recognized that his mum was autistic, he encouraged her to get diagnosed. His son had recently got diagnosed himself. That was a very big factor, as was Lou's experience of a breakdown in a very toxic and unhealthy relationship. There were also some other key experiences in that. This included a chat with her best friend and a mental health professional who both recognized that Lou was autistic. This led to a mental health assessment, which then led to a diagnosis for Lou at the age of 42. I would now like to bring in work by Meg Hartley, who talked about 7 benefits to a late autism diagnosis. A link about Meg Hartley will be included in the video description. Meg talked about self-acceptance, and I think that this is essential to someone embracing their neurodivergent condition, as well as what makes them different. This also led, in Meg's words, to better communication with family. And I think that brings having more clarity in your most important relationships. Meg also talked about finding joy in your authentic self. And for me, I think that brings knowing more about what you want in life. So important to knowing how you fit in with the rest of society. In terms of life hacks, creating sensory-friendly routines, having ear defenders, stim toys, and having essential downtime. Find that those helps people conserve mental energy and enables more people to self-regulate their emotions. Having scripts and templates for social situations, very, very helpful. I find that it helps me anticipate how conversations can be challenging, and it can enable me to prepare for certain conversations. If anyone is neurodivergent, I very much encourage you to put in the comment section how this can assist you in any way. Also, seeking neurodivergent-led spaces for belonging from forums to local groups, very, very important. Can include South Wales Neurodivergent Socials and Neath Autism Hub, for example. Please check them out on Facebook. The important thing to remember here is that you don't need to reinvent yourself. You just need to give yourself permission to live as you are. Self-discovery is an ongoing process. It involves being open and honest with yourself about how you live your life and assessing how others see you. This is what I've learned from my friend Lou, from writers like Meg Hartley and Kristen Abel. I encourage anyone listening to celebrate each win and to think of themselves putting together a life manual or a toolkit of how they like to live and how they fit in with groups of people. So to summarize, step 1 involves awareness, knowing your strengths and your needs. Step 2 involves unmasking, making sure that it's safe, gradual, and intentional. And step 3 involves practical hacks, installing routines, scripts, surrounding yourself with sensory tools, and a community who supports you. So to recap, being late diagnosed isn't about what you've missed, it's about what you now know. And knowledge is power, power to unmask, to connect, and to thrive. I would like to point my listeners to resources which can be found in the video descriptions. If you'd like to dive deeper into this subject, I've linked to articles from Tori Morales, Meg Hartley, Chris Bonello, Jess Horn, and Kristen Abel in the show notes. They're brilliant starting points, and I very much encourage everybody to listen to them, whether you be neurodivergent or neurotypical. Pick one strategy. I'd also like to recommend picking one strategy this week, whether it's journaling, unmasking in safe spaces, or building a sensory routine, and try it out. Self-discovery is a difficult but ultimately very, very important journey. Thank you for listening to this episode of Neurodifference. I'm Rhys Jenkins. This episode resonated, please do me a favor by sharing it with a friend, subscribe, and join me next week when we explore another part of the vast universe that is neurodivergent conditions. Let's make a positive neurodifference in the world.